Alberts. Here. Cooper. Here. Ferguson. Here. Hawley. Absent. Janelli. Absent. Johnston. Here. Pratt. Here. Molinaro. Here. Petrofessa. Present. And Robinson. Okay.
All right. Recognitions. I have no recognitions?
Not at this time.
I'm sorry, not at this time.
Nope.
I will.
We have some students that have done some competition, and we'll bring them to the next one. Maybe the students may have some report.
Let's see what they report. Okay, so we have no recognition, sorry. All right. I don't have anybody signed up. Sorry. Thank you. Thank you. All righty, the board welcomes public participation. And ask that speakers please limit their comments to 3 minutes. Speakers may offer objective comments of school operations and programs that concern them. The board will not permit any expression of personal complaints or derogatory comments about board personnel and students, nor against any the Danbury Public Schools. And we don't answer you right now. Your answers to your concerns are done by our administrators, hopefully after the meetings or during the meeting. We're going to start with Tara Martin Volpe. Tara? I'll be right back. Can you come up? I'm also Mama. I sort of think that I just use the blouse, yes. Very pretty blouse. Hang on.
I'm going to make sure.
My name is Tara Martin Volpe. I live in New Fairfield, but our kindergartner is enrolled at AIS, and we love it. I come to you tonight to speak to you about the elimination of sibling preference at AIS and how it may impact Danbury families that have more than one child, but are considered low income, or are a single parent family, or have two parents that must work in order to make ends meet. Similarly to other cities, these populations generally encompass larger numbers of immigrants and minorities, and this policy change will weigh more heavily and broadly on these groups. The children I come here to speak for are the children who rely on your after-school program, have fewer options and choices, and whose parents already juggle numerous energy-absorbing and complicated obstacles in their day-to-day lives. For these families, creating the potential of having multiple elementary-aged children at two different schools would likely not be a situation they would or could seek for their children because of logistics, added daily complications, and perceived stress. Additionally, a message put forth to these groups by eliminating sibling preference is, this school is no longer meant for you. The board has already acknowledged that there is a struggling population in the city that deserves and requires fewer obstacles regarding educational choices so that these populations can have as much access and opportunity as all other groups. This can be seen through the Early College Opportunity Program offered at the high school. Clearly, this program decreases obstacles of low-income families so that their children can obtain an associate's degree upon graduation. This program creates options and access for these children and decreases part of the financial burden of college tuition, which serves the family as a whole. I respectfully ask the board to consider this question. If the board has an interest in providing these families with more support and opportunity, why in the upper grades would you remove obstacles for these families by offering the ECO program, which increases educational opportunities and choices, but at the elementary level, create more obstacles for these families by eliminating sibling preference, making this option harder for families to access, which decreases their educational opportunities and choices? I respectfully ask the board to consider how much more the elimination of sibling preference will impact these families, and that you reinstitute sibling preference so that all families are on equal footing when considering applying or accepting an offered spot at the school. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
I can do it.
What are we going to make now? All righty, while they're gathering the paper, Mark Stanton. Mark? Sorry, I didn't see you. You were blended. Use some eyebrow glasses. Welcome.
Good evening. My name is Mark Stanton. I am a resident of Danbury. I have been since 2006. I am a current AIS parent. 9 of the past 10 years. Think about that, Dr. Nikowski. I think we've known each other quite some time. So it's hard to find somebody who's been involved with AIS as long as I have. I have a child in 4th grade, 1 year to go there. I'm also the former AIS PTO treasurer. And if Mr. Gianelli were here, we could talk about how we started writing the books for the PTO when it just got started. I'm a spouse of a former AIS vice president. I'm also the parent of 2 middle schoolers. I have a 6th grader at Rogers Park, and I have an 8th grader at Westside. I am also a 19-year veteran of public schools, having taught in New York City and White Plains for the past 19 years. I'm a math teacher. I got my test right there. Great. You can say I'm very committed to public education. I quit a corporate job 20 years ago and have been teaching ever since. I got 12 years to go, and I love every minute of it. I'm here to tell you that I'm very much in favor of removing sibling preference. It's a very hard thing to say because many of my friends and colleagues I know are advocating, and I wanted you to hear another voice. So I think the elimination of sibling preference is very good for Danbury. It's been very bad for me personally, 9 to 10 years at AIS, but I think it's very good for the school, for the city, and I'd like to tell you why. 8 years ago, I got involved with the PTO when some of the parents at AIS saw that they had a really good thing going and wanted to actually, some of you might remember, wanted to expand the school and go from 5th grade to 6th grade because they just wanted to go a little longer. It's a great school. It's a wonderful thing. I know Dr. Glass was heavily involved in doing that. They did a whole assessment, and it turned out it wasn't the right thing to do. So that's what got me involved in the PTO in the first place. When I saw that, like I said, this is a very hard thing to talk about. One of the things that I want you to consider is, I heard a lot of testimony about sibling preference, and is AIS's success the result of sibling preference or not? That's really what I've been asking myself. And I don't think Dr. Nikowski would work any less harder than she does, or the staff there, or the custodial staff, or the parents, whether there's one child there or several. I think we just do it because that's the right thing to do. We work hard. Okay? There's no secret formula success for AIS, and I think, as a math teacher, I took a look at the numbers that were presented. Mark Twain said there are lies, damn lies, and statistics. You can take the numbers and work them however you want. When I took the numbers, I'm a math teacher, not that you have to trust me, but when I took the numbers and I ran them, I saw that you doubled when sibling preference was removed, that you doubled the probability that a family would get into that school. Now, the probability is still very small. It goes from 4% to around 7%, but you double the probability that somebody can get in that school based on the large number of applicants that you have. You know there's a demand, and like I said, I'm very much committed to achievement gap, bridging it. Am I at the time?
You've got 10 seconds.
Okay, I got to tell you two things though. The best thing about no sibling preference is I got to see my children in 2 different middle school musicals this year, both Bye Bye Birdie and Beauty and the Beast. And I can tell you the worst thing about having sibling preference is I get 9 robocalls in the morning on a snow day where there's a delayed opening. That's 3 on the house phone, 1 from each school, 3 on the cell phone, my cell phone, and 3 on my wife's. So that's pretty much the worst thing there is about sibling preference. We've managed to get through it, and I really hope you consider weighing heavily, the achievement gap versus the benefits of that. Okay? Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Do you have something on to turn in the records?
No, I don't.
Okay. Thank you.
Alrighty, we're going to Tricia Robinson. Tricia? What? Everybody can come on. What? Everybody can come. We are small person friendly. We try. Sorry, that was too big. Nice try.
Bye. Good evening, I'm Tricia Robinson, and I brought with me my kids. Unfortunately, my husband's working late tonight, but I had an opportunity today to advocate on behalf of Danbury for public education. I'm a strong proponent for public education. I've had great success in my personal life in public education, and at the Benefit School with Dr. Zukowski, it's just been fabulous. I just want to remind you by reading Exhibit A and B, my second grader and my soon-to-be kindergartner, why it makes such a difference to allow the families to stay together. Priya, my 4-year-old, has been coming to the school since Kieran was in kindergarten. She knows so many people. The teachers are looking forward to having her after her school. She walks the halls like she knows where she's going. She feels comfortable. She has so much of an advantage as a kid to be able to go to where her sister is. And at the end of the day, it's really not about how much my life is easier because we're together. It's about the experience of my kids. And I really believe that sharing life experiences like gardening and Spanish and the different international continents that they're studying will really make a positive impact in my child's life. I trust in our principal, Dr. Zukowski. She has done a phenomenal job at our school. As there are other really great principals, this is never anything against any other school. It's just I want our school to have the same opportunities as every other elementary school, which is keeping our kids together, keeping families together, allowing kids to share life experiences, and allowing them to grow together. And sorry, Mark actually left, but he did have the benefit of all 3 kids going to magnet school, so I'm sure he saw the benefit of all his kids being in the same elementary school. So thank you for your time. I do appreciate your service. I know you dedicate a lot of time and energy to this, and it's not easy when you have multiple views coming forth to you, but I do appreciate all that you're doing for us. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for taking your time. Now, is there anyone else who would like to speak?
Well, sure.
Okay. You know, we didn't too long.
So, my name is Patty Keith. I am a parent with a child in Westside and 2 at the magnet school. My middle one did not get into Westside, so next year I will be at 3 different schools. I've been very lucky with the lottery, so I'm not here, to complain about that, but I am feeling the burden now because I'm going to be in the position that a lot of parents in the next years will be in, is having in different schools. So I guess with that said, I want to go back to what was mentioned 2 years ago in the meeting about the kids at AS who have been taking Spanish for 6 years and will be be good to them when they get to Rogers Park or Broadview. Right now, 6th graders do not take Spanish at Broadview, at the Rogers Park district, so my 5th grader would have the option to have Spanish. But will she be put in an ESL class, or will they be given through from AIS, will be put in a different elevated Spanish class?
Yeah, we're gonna switch the mic out. Yeah.
Thank you. And
I
thank you.
So, you know, those I've kind of kept quiet about over the last couple of years, but I've definitely have been listening to the parents from both Broadview and Rogers Park, and it's an issue. So the AIS kids that have had 6 years of Spanish are going to Broadview and not having that option in 6th grade. And the 6th graders at Rogers Park this year, I believe, and you know, forgive me if I'm misinformed, but they're in an ESL class. Now, if it's an immersion class, that's wonderful. But I don't think that, I feel like it's more a Band-Aid because there's not enough teachers. So that's just out there for you. Because 2 years ago, it was made known that, we've got to do something for those kids that have Spanish from kindergarten onwards. So I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Ms. Keith? Thank you. Hang on with this one. All righty. Anybody else in the audience that would like to speak that hasn't signed up? Is there anybody in the 2nd or 3rd row? 4th row? 5th row? Anywhere else in the building? Okay, seeing no one else, we'll move forward to a consent calendar.
That the Board of Education approves the items on the consent calendar, Exhibit 16-61 through 16-65 as recommended.
Second.
Second by Ralph. Any questions? But, no questions, okay. I would like to thank IBM for the $3,000 of a donation to help fund the after-school classes at Morris Street School. Thanks, IBM. And I would like to thank and congratulate some people. And if I fill up, I'm sorry, I'm a little emotional these days. Mary Ann Chaperone is leaving after 22 years. She was the aide in my son's preschool class, which was in our early intervention program. And it was 3 years, preschool, 3. Sharon O'Loughlin is leaving after 24 years. Sharon was at Mill Ridge Primary, probably still is. Thank both of them for their outstanding, as are Catherine Leone for 14 years and Ms. Swanson for 11. Thank you for your service. Okay, all in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? Abstentions? No, going forward. Employee representatives, we have one here.
Sounds good.
Employee representatives, come on up, all of you, and tell us your story, please. Mrs. South Street. Come on, everybody from South Street. Everybody from South Street, you all have the same shirts on. I'm getting mine from back here. I've never met a shy teacher, but this is pretty cool. There's a program, all right? So if you'll take around and introduce yourselves.
Well, my name is Allison Hauser. I'm a 3rd grade teacher at South Street, of course.
Okay,
I'm Rebecca Neese. I'm a 1st grade teacher at South Street.
first, okay,
I'm Janet Smith, speech therapist at South Street.
okay.
Gwen Davidson, kindergarten teacher at South Street. Pat Sealy, 2nd grade teacher at South Street.
Elizabeth Mendes, 1st grade teacher at South Street.
Marcia Jones, media specialist at South Street.
And Carolyn Keenan, 2nd grade teacher.
Thanks. It's always nice for us to know who you are, and when you teach, could you put faces to the people that we admire and respect so much. Thank you very much. Go.
First of all, thank you for having us here, and thank you for all you do. We just wanted to share some good things that are happening at South Street School. as you know from a previous meeting, that we are partnered with the Jericho Project at South Street School, and we are very grateful to them and the project. And some upcoming summer things are happening for our students that are really beneficial. Our 5th grade class will be attending a 7-week summer camp at Pathways, Monday through Friday, all expenses paid, academics. So they're very excited about that. We also have 20 students from grades K through 4 that will also be attending a summer camp. And 15 students coming into kindergarten will be doing a program called Jumpstart Program. And it's a 6-week program, and it equals 100 hours of intensive instruction before they enter kindergarten. So that's really, and it's the 15 most needy children that need to have their skills and things reinforced. I'll say it that way. Also, with the Jericho Project, we have had like a breakfast book club. So every morning the kids eat their breakfast and they read books with the volunteers, and they absolutely love it. Our school most recently, and I think you've heard this already, we had a new renovated teacher's room, which we're really excited about, and an outdoor classroom, which we will be using very soon. Also, as far as parent involvement and meeting student needs, one of the things that we do at South Street is something called WIN. And it's basically what I need at time, and every classroom has this time set aside to really work on students' needs and strengthen their skills. We also had participated in the Invention Convention. South Street had a really good participation there. And all of our teachers do a lot of parent nights. We want parents to come. We do math nights and celebrations. And recently, last night actually, we had a music and art show. We have a kindergarten art and music show coming up. So we really like that the parents are coming and are involved in in what we're doing. So thank you for listening and having us here.
I have some questions around the table, Kathy.
Yes, how are the children identified that are coming into this kindergarten?
The Jumpstart,
We have screenings before they enter kindergarten, so we have a really good tool to see which kids really need the extra help.
So it's through the screening process
Through the screening,
when
yes.
they come to register?
Yes.
And could you do me a favor, because I don't know why I missed it, but I probably was writing and thinking, this versus right. Tell me about this outdoor classroom.
yeah, basically it's, we have 3 sections. They're kind of like oval seating that teachers can bring their class. We'll have like a rotating thing. Teachers can bring their classes out, and we can do lessons outside. And it's really a neat concept because to see the outdoors and have a different setting for them is really exciting. So we're looking forward to using it.
Not the bench, it's more outside than inside.
Okay, and you're looking forward to using it. Has anybody used it? Or?
Not yet.
It's not.
Just-
Yeah.
There's a lot of benches and there's like trees and plants growing, so it's really nice. And there was a wasted space behind our school. So the Jericho Project decided to give us an outdoor classroom.
And I believe we're doing planting. We're planting too.
The
as
kids
well.
did plant seeds and they're little beans and they're putting it out in the garden.
So, and you all, it just seems to me, just looking at you, you're pretty excited about it. Yeah. So that's good. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you,
The reason
Pat.
that everybody's doing this is we talked to Mr. Sam talked about it, I did, because there was an interest in us going from school to school so we could see what's going on in your schools. And rather than us transporting ourselves and you having to go back or stay in the same place, it's easier for you to come here and tell us about it. And we get to talk to you and find out what's actually going on. All right.
But feel free anytime it doesn't sound sweet.
What we need to do, and not just you, not the South Street, but everybody needs to keep us in the loop. I mean, there's websites and there's all that stuff, but you need to use a piece of paper where the kids, we need to put them in our backpack and look and see what we can go through and what we can't. And we'll show it to them. And we'll just annoy you, that's all.
Okay. And we have a great principal heading our school, so it's
do.
wonderful.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you very much. Thanks for your time. Okay, that's
Okay, so I'm Caleb Burke and I'm a senior.
I'm Alec Moore, I'm also a senior.
And we're from the Board of Governors Executive Council.
So student events coming up within the next month are May 2nd is the band concert at 7 p.m. in the cafeteria. May 5th through May 7th is the In the Heights musical, our production at Danbury High School. May 9th is the National Honor Society induction ceremony in the auditorium. May 13th is junior prom at the Portuguese Cultural Center. May 20th is the talent show taking place 7 p.m. in our auditorium. May 23rd is the choral concert in the auditorium, and May 27th is senior prom at the Danbury.
And then June 3rd is the band concert at 7 p.m. in the auditorium. June 4th is a Coda Festival 2 to 8 p.m. in the courtyard. June 6th is Senior Awards 6 p.m. in the auditorium. And then June 8th is the Department Senior Awards 9:30 a.m. in the auditorium. And then June 9th is graduation at 5 p.m.
That's it. People are pull off applauding quietly. I can't believe it's over tonight. It's like amazing. All right, thank you. Could you leave a copy of that with us, please? Thank you very much. Okay, Ace. I see Ace is represented. No? Yes?
Yeah.
Yes, come on up to the table, sweetheart.
Hello.
Hi.
During the month of March, students participated in a project-based learning activity in their career and life skills classes surrounding alternatives to school lunch. Upon conducting research regarding national guidelines surrounding school lunch, students have advocated for some additional food opportunities at ACE, including a more extensive salad bar, weekly Subway deli sandwiches, and a vending machine that provides healthy drinks. On Wednesday, April 6th, 30 students from ACE and some of their parents attended a fried chicken dinner at ACE at 5:30 and then boarded a bus to DHS to see and listen to the amazing Chris Herron presentation. The feedback from this was very positive, and the messages that were delivered about how substance abuse can totally destroy your life was heard by many. On Thursday, March 31st, 25 ACE students participated in a field trip with Kyle Chipola and John Weber to the Connecticut Science Center in Hartford. Exciting exhibits that students attended included an invention convention exhibit, an environmental ecology exhibit, and a sports and motion exhibit. Lastly, students at ACE are preparing for a number of outdoor education trips that will be hosted this spring, including an overnight hiking trip on the Appalachian Trail, a 3-day whitewater rafting trip, and a final end-of-the-year school-wide trip to Camp Harlick, where students will have an opportunity to participate in team building, low ropes activities, and high rope zip lining.
Excellent. Thank you very much. But you know what you did forgot? You need Stephanie. Stephanie, hi Stephanie. Thanks. Wow, you exhausted me. We need that with us when we leave. All right. Okay, Lexi, you're on. This is our Board of Education student representative from the state.
That's right. Okay, so my year is really coming to an end now. We have about 1 or 2 months left, and now we are preparing for our big board meeting in June. But right now, I plan on staying on track with most of the things that we've been working on. So my peers and I on that committee that I've been on all year have hopes of starting student advocacy groups around the state about the ECS funding formula problem. We particularly plan on working to do this by relying upon our personal connections among students in cities that have been badly affected by the way the system works. And we hope that they will be able to really, this is going to be a student movement if we're able to successfully get it off the ground, because while we definitely appreciate all the hard work that adults do to make all this work for us, ultimately we are the consumers of education, as I often say. And if the funding formulas aren't working out, then we're the ones who get affected, and our futures are at risk in that regard. So I think we should really make this a priority to stand up in any way that we can and advocate for the solutions that will or will not work for us. Now just trying to get enough student support statewide to call this issue, to bring more attention to it. And I hope to have some role in the update of every year. The State Student Advisory Council on Education has a meeting with the State Board of Education, and we provide an update on some of the things that we've been working on over the course of the year. And I hope to have some role in that update, and perhaps then I can use that
is another chance to talk about some of the work our committee has done and how this issue does really affect many school districts throughout the state. Just another thing that I thought I'd bring up today. So of course this does impact Danbury, and I know that we have a lobbyist working on this problem. And what we wanted to do, this would be entirely, independent from the Danbury Board of Education. This would again be a student initiative at the high school, and perhaps we work through one of the faculty members there. But we are trying to get, my friends and I are trying to get a group of students together to potentially, we'd like to provide some advocacy for this in any way that we can, because we know that this affects us. And if it might be appropriate, or if you might see it as fit, for us to potentially consider talking to a lobbyist to see how we can get the student voice involved in this argument from Danbury's side. We would certainly like to do that. And that's something that we hope to do on our own, but this will also be an advocacy group if we can get it up and running. This will also be an advocacy group for just general educational issues, to really bring people into this and help students realize how much this impacts them. Because if there's anything that I've noticed, it's that a lot of times students love to get involved, but sometimes they just don't know how these issues impact them. They don't know how sometimes even politics impacts them, or education policy decisions impact them. So this would be not only an opportunity to get kids more civically engaged at the high school level, but also encourage them to speak out on issues that really are very, very important to all of us. So that's something that perhaps I will work on. I'd like to ask you guys if you have any suggestions on that, how we can perhaps play a bigger role and have a bigger voice within our community.
Thank you, Liz. Alrighty, that is it for that. We're moving into, do not have, I just found out there's no presentation tonight, so moving right along to action items.
That the Board of Education accept the March 2016 operating results analysis general fund in accordance with 16-66.
Do I hear a second? Seconded by Holly. Any questions? Joe, you want to lead off?
Nothing terribly. Nothing exciting at the end of the year. Monitoring health insurance. All in all, things look okay. Trying to juggle some things around. But right now, health insurance plans are what we're monitoring closely. And other than that, no major alarms as we come to the end of the year, which is kind of good.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Seeing none, all party minds, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, opposed? Goes passes.
That the Board of Education accept the March 2016 operating results analysis grants projects in accordance with 16-67.
Seconded by Gladys. Any questions? Joe?
One small piece of information I want to take the board on. We did see a small dip in our magnet count this year because we did see a drop in our enrollment numbers in the school. It's per student, there was a small drop, so we lose about $65,000 to $70,000 in that grant that we have to make up. So, an issue with the
Any other discussion?
What was the drop in enrollment? Was that?
In a sense, student made selections to go in there, so we did have some of our partnering districts, we did see a decline there. And the state makes a projection, they take our October numbers and run them through their calculations, so we did see a small decline. Based on what we put in the school this year through the lottery system, I think we'll make up those seats. That should be fine. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, all party minds, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Objections, abstentions, seeing none, it passes.
That the Board of Education change the June 2016 scheduled meeting dates from the second and fourth Wednesday, June 8th and June 22nd, to the first and third Wednesday, June 1st and June 15th, due to graduation moving up ceremonies the week of June 6th through 10th. The revised meeting dates will be posted as special board meetings.
Seconded by Pat. Any conversation, Pat?
I just have a question to Joe. Will changing that last June date, will that make an impact on how we finish the year?
Related to the
Well, related to you.
16, 17 budget.
Just-
Right now, if we don't go, if the state is to go to a special session, in a sense, by March 4th, May 4th, everything's gonna be done. The city budget will be set, the state budget will be set in theory. So we'll have, in a sense, a good 2 months to get everything set as far as cuts and those sorts of things,
So I
so.
guess what I'm asking is if we keep that last June date, would it be better for us, information-wise, from Joe, knowing that we're ending the school year correctly, rather than having it on the 15th and not knowing, leaving for the summer and not knowing where we are?
I don't know. We discussed it pretty thoroughly. And what do you think, Sal?
You can always call on a meeting.
Yeah, I mean, you can always do a special meeting if needed, if
If
you
you
had
leave it
to.
on there, then you cancel it.
Yeah.
And I think that's all counts.
Yeah, it's,
The intent is
Just so we
Yeah.
don't leave for the summer and not know.
All right, so everybody on, don't leave for the summer.
yeah, I mean,
Don't leave for the summer.
Don't leave for the Hamptons, please.
you could even do it as not a full board meeting, do it in the finance meeting as a close up to the year if you wanted
And
to.
if there's anything,
Yeah.
we'll let you know.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, we could easily, so make it a simple kind of short meeting, that kind of thing.
Just so we have no surprises. that's all.
I understand. Yeah, June 15th is an early
It's
for
very early
us.
for you, yeah.
Clearly, I mean, we don't set up enough till
You don't
late.
know what the encumbrances are, all of that stuff.
Yes, I'm sorry, when we changed the dates, we probably should have consulted more.
No, it's okay, don't worry.
Okay, this is-
I sound the fire alarms early,
Sarah,
don't worry.
voice,
You'll hear from me quick.
All right, all in favor?
I just want,
Oh, wait, one more.
so are we having a meeting on the 15th, and then if there's unresolved issues?
We'll come back.
Yeah.
Come
Yes,
back,
we'll come back.
okay.
That's why we said, don't go to the summer house yet.
Yes, I just wanted to get clarity.
Yeah, that ball, you can open up that ball and air it out. Okay. So now, all in favor? Objections, abstentions? Seeing none passes. Moving right into Sal's report.
You don't, first the budget update, I did send out something to you regarding the state budget from our lobbyists. And yes, the lobbyists will work with our student advocacy groups. Right now, the work of advocacy is more one-on-one because all the testimony has been completed, so we're looking at next year. But they would be willing to work, and we brought that up to them. Our budget update, for us, the Alliance money is in ECS money for next year was to be frozen. The House Republicans and the governor's budget did include the additional amount of about $850,000, one about $900 in another. The point being they're in both budgets. However, the Democrats have not submitted a budget to the governor. So as of today, the expectation is by Thursday, there'll be a recommendation by the Democrats in terms of their budget, and which will not be signed by the governor, which means that they'll have to go, and as Joe just mentioned, they may have to extend their session in order to have a state budget. So as everybody points out, they do have a budget for this next year. It's just that they can't fund it. They're $580 million short. That's what they're dealing with, right? So right now, that's where we're at with that. It's in flux. Our lobbyists did send me another email today, keeping us updated on that information. That goes to the Alliance grant. The two of those go together. Right now, we have asked for an extension of the Alliance grant. You know, we showed you what's basically in it. If we have the additional money, resources, we would utilize them in some of the programming that we would like to do. So they've given us an extension, right, Joe?
Yes.
So that's been done. I think the rule of the day is chaos. They're not really playing nice up in Hartford, and that's creating angst across the state. As you know, Danbury and just a few others received ECS money. All of the other communities were cut, and that's what's creating the problem. The governor decided to equalize the funding. That is, districts that have been receiving money with declining enrollments should not have been receiving it. If the formula had been kept whole, which was frozen. So he's saying you've been getting money for extra years. At this point, we have to distribute the limited resources to those districts that are growing. And that's why we have, and some other districts have been able to get this extra money. And that's it's created quite an adversarial atmosphere in Hartford, so that's what we're dealing with. As far as the local, the town did uphold the $2.2 million recommendation from the subcommittee of the town, which means that we had asked for 5.2, so we're 3 million plus short. That's why that alliance money or ECS money is important to us. We've talked with the mayor about some excess costs, that's a special ed cost. He's open to rerouting some of those costs and reimbursements to us, which could add some of our resources specifically for special education. So but right now, that's the recommendation. Next week will be a meeting on.
Yes, next Tuesday will be the full city council meeting where the mill rate is set and the board and the city budget are approved and set. So in a sense, after Tuesday, we'll have an official working number.
So, and we're waiting for that before we start talking about what we're doing with the $3 million. So getting everybody all excited, money's going back and forth. So right now, that's where we're at with that. The enrollment study, we met with the enrollment consultants, and we are going to have them in. It's a little more costly, but they will actually do an analysis, not only the demography of the town, but the neighborhood growth in neighborhoods, looking at the build-outs, doing more work on the condominiums that, quote, don't have kids that are having kids. They're a company that has worked with Stanford, Norwalk, and some of the surrounding towns. So they have good best practice in looking at them and making estimates of how many students will be getting out. So they'll be doing their work. And I've also asked them to include the ethnicity, because if anything, we may be problematic with our OCR at each of the schools. So if we have to redistrict, we have no space to redistrict. But if you have to redistrict, it would be based on moving students because of their ethnicity, over-representation at any one school. Right now, we're in compliance in all of them. But as part of the study, we've included that. They're going to work on also the school buildings. You may remember the Savin report a few years ago. What they did, before we did the 18 additions, they did walkthroughs, did a space utilization study. They will include that in there. They'll take the Savin, update that for us so that we have an idea of what the space accommodations that we need for the projected growth that that they anticipate that we'll have. So we'll start in May, the work on it during the summer. By next September, October, we should have something for the board as we go into the next budget cycle and planning cycle. We're still planning enrollment-wise. I'm hoping that we can get that module over at Shelter Rock. That would give us 4 classrooms, and we'll need that very badly. We also, as you may have read the paper, Mr. Loney is opening up another center, and they may have room to rent, and we may need to do that to create some space at Acetown. So, we're looking at those options. So at this point, instead of anything else. Anything else on the enrollments?
No.
What's the name of the company?
McMullen and McBroom, they actually just finished the study for Bethel. As Dr. Sal said, they've done extensive work in Stanford and Norwalk, so they've got a good handle on the growing urban districts. So I think it's been pretty comprehensive in what they do. It's a slice of what Peter Prada does, but this is even deeper into truly the housing starts and those sorts of things. That's why I think we really need this that.
I have nothing else.
Yes, Gladys, go ahead.
Dr. said on last meeting, maybe I forgot, I thought our amount to the city for the city budget was 4.59, and you just stated that it's 5.2. The city's only giving us 2.2. So where did that extra money in our binder? Well, we're asking for 4.9 for our budget, and it's 5.2.
That may have been the
Dr. Sal said, I believe the current increase was 5.6 million and a 4.59% increase. So I think that's where the numbers are just getting flipped up.
That's the percentage increase, but the dollar increase is much greater.
but no matter what, it's
We should
9.2, we only get 2.2.
That is absolutely right.
Yeah.
No question about that.
We have to cover the problem. If you look at it from the whole $3.4 million. we have to-
You know, let me just step back. Part of the concern, I mean, we have been mindful of working with the city, you know. What's going on with this thing in Hartford, if the schools and ECS are receiving more money, what they're doing, what's being done strategically is taking resources from the municipality. So the ability for the municipality to look at their income sheet to provide more resources for the departments may be impacted by that. That was the other concern that we had. I really thought that we might have been reduced a little bit more. Today, we have not.
The city lost approximately $3 million in sales tax revenue from the state, and under the governor's plan. So that, I believe, gave Mayor Cooley heartburn. So that was where the concern came, is if we could fall below the 2.2 million that's been allocated, because clearly he can't absorb a $3 million on his side. As of now, they haven't firmed that number up. There was some conversation even at the city council meeting, they thought that might be maybe $500,000 to $1 million cut on sales tax, if maybe the city can mitigate on their side. But as of now, we haven't heard any more on that.
So right now, I'm anticipating the cut, which is substantial. It just benchmarks there, and that's what we have to deal with. That's what I'm hoping.
Just the only small piece I'll throw, I did a meeting with our insurance brokers the other day, and we do anticipate about $350,000 reduction, at least in health. It's clearly not enough to get us from here to there, but I mean, there's some movement in health. Not as much as we'd like to see, but there is some. So, getting more.
Anybody else?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, Pat.
I just had one question. In your opinion, if the governor is willing to cut some of the town's ECS money, the funding, do you think that this is something that we may have a problem with next year's budget looming as being much larger deficit than this present year? I'm just trying to understand that. It was my understanding that the ECS was basically legislative, it was a law, that there's supposed to be a certain amount of funding, and if they're starting to cut out people altogether, or cut out towns altogether, does that potential loom for us? I mean, can they come back instead of not keeping a status quo, but actually start cutting our funding on the ECS side?
You mean after they allocate it to us?
Well, this year, I guess, if this budget goes through, that still isn't set in stone.
That's correct.
So, but I mean, even now going into next year, I mean, are we actually looking at the fact that they may come back to us and say, like they did at Greenwich, well, we're giving you nothing?
No. The statute, see, they're keeping us whole now, which, you know, because the compression were less, right? So that money is coming because of the law that was passed with the 30 schools that are part of what they call the Alliance. Okay? So we've been sacrosanct with that. That's staying. They froze us moving forward. Now they've added it back in. If they added it back in, can they cut that? Well, the answer is they can cut it. If they can change the law to cut it all. That's been our fear right along. But Governor Malloy, because his work in Stanford, understood why the cities needed to be funded differently. Right? So that's why you have that categorical money coming to the state, to the schools. Part of the CJEF case, that's right now in its, I think, 40th day, the state's arguing the way they've provided resources to the needy urban districts is through this along, through the ECS. I think that's why I didn't think they could pull that money, because that's their argument in court at this point. But that's for this year. When we get into next year, there's supposed to be $920 million deficit, right? So, you know, I don't know what's going to happen next year. I'm worried not only about funding for there, but we heard today that even the construction funding change.
Not necessarily the high school project, but I mean future construction project, which the mayor indicated even when we put up the high school project to vote last year, we're concerned with some change in the school construction formulas for roofs and reimbursements there. I mean, clearly that's a state bonds, I forgot last tag was over $500 million a year in school construction across the state, so that's.
Well, the short and long of it is, we could move
Oh,
on.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah, that's what I'm looking at the fact that from what I've read on the projected budgets going forward, we're looking at basically a $3 billion deficit over the next couple of years, that money's gonna come from somewhere, and I just don't know that this community can take a hit like that from state funding, because obviously it can't be made up by the city budget. And that was, the CTEP case, does that look like it's gonna be anytime soon?
Well, the state's putting on theirs, and it'll probably go another 3 or 4 weeks, and then it will be into the fall. I understand where they may come up with a ruling. So that's where we're at with that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else have any questions? Okay, seeing none. We're moving forward. What I'm going to do is ask if it's all right with everybody here, asking the table, if we move up the 2 trips for the information, go up for the discussion, and that one there, we won't have, the people don't have to sit through our discussion.
Yeah, in case you have any questions, it is here, the information is here.
About the trips? Yeah, okay.
We're okay with that.
I don't know that Irish trip is like, could we just make it Scotland, because I've been home too many times. Sorry.
Do we have to go up there, or do we use?
No,
You can
only
say
if they
it.
call
I'll make
you.
any questions, Deb, does. Anybody
Let
have
me
any
just say, it
questions?
is happening during the school break,
I've
correct?
arranged it so it would only be the night the break starts, we'd fly out overnight, and we'd be back this Saturday before we come back. I tried very hard not to ask you to miss any time.
I like that it's going to Belfast. I just, it's my comment about people are waiting, seeing.
We're going to safe zones this year, Dublin, going into Dublin, going to Belfast, and coming out of Glasgow. So we're in real nondescript places, you know. We're not going to featured cities.
I know, but most trips don't go to Belfast. That's what I'm saying. I think it's
I know.
great that you're going to Belfast. Been there a million times. Any questions about the Irish trip?
You want to come?
Yes, I do.
One side comment that I don't have a right to say, but the kids missed it. Mr. Boccaccio announced at our meeting yesterday, the Les Paul exhibit that's crossing the nation,
Yes.
it's a major feature thing. They asked us if they could come and be hosted here. Before I could even get into my email to book a reservation to bring my classes, it was all booked. So the younger teachers do know who Les Paul was. But I just thought you guys should know, because there's gonna be an afternoon tour of this great big grand exhibit. And it's coming here, and then it's here only that night. And I don't know if it's this coming Monday or the following. I didn't get it because I got left out of it. But just so you know, it's next week, and you might want, I think it's at 4:30, but you have to check which day it is.
Oh, we have,
Do you have the invitation?
we have the invitations on it, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good night.
Hey, Deb, thanks. And I might just show up, you know that.
Go to Belfast with me.
Okay, any questions on the other trip, which is Costa Rica? We have someone here from Costa Rica. Do anybody have any questions on that trip? Again, on the timing, it's the same time as during spring break?
Correct.
I'm not from the country, so if anybody has any questions, alrighty. Seeing none, thank you very much for coming.
The tour guide just gave me an additional piece of information to add
Sure.
to what.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry, can your name is?
Delaney Gonzalez.
Thanks, Ms. So, thank you.
Have a good night.
Thank you. Okay, we're going into discussion. Before we start the discussion, we have people here to speak about this discussion to help lead us on. During our conversations amongst ourselves, people noted that they had never heard Dr. McCaskey speak about the school. I sort of cried, but nobody had heard her speak. So she's here, and we've unleashed her that she can speak. Would you come to the table and speak for me, please? Thank you. And do you ever get tiny apples that from all these parents? It's pretty amazing.
The short answer, no.
Hi, everyone. I'm Lena Natowski for the new board members, and thank you for the opportunity to come tonight and speak with you a little bit about the issue at hand. And so my hope for tonight is just to be able to clearly articulate the feelings and the thoughts of the staff at the school as well as myself on the issue of sibling preference. And I think, one of the things that's so important is that in any school, everyone works really hard to develop a climate and a culture where kids feel safe and nurtured and they can do their best. So that being said, schools are really an extension of family. And we have those kids for 6 years, and over 6 years, most families have more than one child. So we at the school do feel very strongly that eliminating sibling preference will impact the climate and the culture of the school, because we get to know those families and we get to work with those kids over a long period of time. I do recognize that the position that you're in and the challenges that you face with this kind of a decision are difficult. And I know that you always work in the best interest of the children of Danbury. And that's particularly why I'm here as well, because this does affect the children of Danbury. And whenever we look at making decisions, we have to really balance off our head and our heart, and that's kind of how we have to work, I think, in this field, is we look at research and we say, well, what does the research say? And so when we look at this particular topic, we know that kids need to stay together, and we've seen that in other magnet schools. In fact, when they removed the sibling preference, they have gone back to it. And then the hard part is, what's the right thing for our families and for our kids? So it really is a difficult place to be, because I certainly understand both sides of the conversation. But I think tonight, the most important thing was to just come forward and let you know how we feel at the school, working with the kids and the families that we work with, and to answer any questions that you might have about this issue, because I know it's a challenging one.
Thank you. Do I have any questions from Dr. Natowski? Yes? No, I'm sorry. We'll take it over. Nobody over here? Nobody here?
At the meeting last year, I supported the sibling policy change. I supported the sibling policy change, and I just want to go on record on why. I think when the board looked at this, I think as a gentleman spoke, it was trying to not limit but to open choice. And that would be for the DECO program, for the advanced placement programs at the high school, that we opened up the gates for students to choose more than what they had been able to choose in the past. And the sibling policy, the board felt, and I supported, that it did limit the opportunities by 4%, apparently. That was done mathematically, but and that's true. We are not in an OCR issue at that school, so we're in compliance. There were some rumors that's why you did it, or that was clearly not the reason why the board did it. I think inherently, though, with all good intentions, unintended consequences has hit us. That is the disparity between the non-Danburyans and getting much more advantages than our own citizens. You did that for a business reason only. You eliminate that and people don't come, you're going to have a school that is not funded properly and wind up carrying the freight forward. And that is quite an expense, $700,000 a year. So that's why you made that decision. But clearly you tried to open up for more families, not limit it. I spoke to Garth, the superintendent of New Haven. They had the same genesis of ideas some years back to do it for the same purposes, the same reasons. And they can require out-of-towners to pay tuition where you cannot, because they're part of the chef case resolution. We are not. We're purely voluntary. When I talked to them last year, because the parents in the audience had mentioned that they had done some research, I called and spoke to him. And he said, I think it was, they kept it for 3 or 4 years, that they sort of declined, not in the enrollment piece, because folks were coming so much, but in the participation and all of the climate and culture things that you're speaking to. So I listened a little bit differently. I went and spoke to the faculty at the school. I think Dr. Alina did reflect their feelings. They think it doesn't add value to their school. They don't really feel as though the word that's come out is elitism. It's not about that. I think you need to park that. It's about, is it fair for those students versus the out-of-town students? And the negative impact it's going to have on their culture and climate, they seem to be very concerned about it. So that's all I do. So I'll go on record supporting the board rescinding that. I think it's the right thing to do at this point. It's incumbent upon us to try to open some other opportunities, and we may be in the future and doing some additions and doing some things to add some other options. But if I were doing it again, I think with the background that I have, now, I would have made that recommendation too. So, thank you.
Catherine?
I would just like to say that it's not about the parents that came here and talked about it. I think that it's the right thing to do is to keep siblings together. And I think that this school has soared above, and I think we should emulate that, not tear it down. So I am definitely in favor of keeping our policy, not changing it. So Madam Chair, I'd like to move that the board maintain its current policy of sibling preference. And
That would be an action item?
This is not on for action.
I know that I can do that.
If
You
you
can make the motion. You may make.
want to make a motion to add an item to the agenda,
Then I move that we add this to the agenda.
add an action item to this current agenda, you'd have to vote that in first. Is it second?
Yes, so second for would you that we have to, I'm going to ask Kathy, if it's all right with you, I would like to ask, is there anyone else that would like to comment on this?
You got to speak.
I'm sorry, I'm speaking into this now. Just before we vote, before we make it an action item, if that's what we agreed to do, I'd like, is there anyone else that has any questions to extend this discussion? Which we're going. Holly, Ralph.
I have a question of, just now, the siblings, if you refresh my memory, the students that are currently in the school now, their siblings, regardless of period of time, are grandfathered in to go to the school, correct?
Everybody that you've admitted, even the new students that you have admitted, would be grandfathered into the sibling policy.
Okay, so if there's an upcoming kindergartner in 2 years, and the kid is in 3rd grade, that kindergartner can go to the school, correct?
Right.
It's not, right.
That's correct. That's correct. Once the other sibling leaves the school, then
Then it's over.
then it's over.
Okay. And second question is, like I said, the school is a great school, and I think that in your building, the feel of it, the climate, is the building. Because every other school has sibling preference, because your kids go there because that's where you live. And your school gets, accolades and is a great school. I don't think because brothers and sisters go there. I think it's because the climate that, frankly, you create as a building, principal and the staff. Because when Michael and I walked through the school, and I think we mentioned to you, the feel is different. And I don't think that's, having, Sally and Janie together. I think it's a feel that you guys, your staff, and and you do in the building, it's a feel. So I think if there's anyone that comes through that, and it's a compliment, anyone that comes through that door is gonna get that great climate, that great education that you guys are doing now. So I don't think it's because of two siblings being there, because like I said, every other school is sibling preference, because you live there and your kids just go to the school. So I think it's a great, building that you guys have created, and the parenting and participation. And, been PTO president for years, citywide PTO president, and it's the building and the people in the building along with the parents there that create that environment. I don't think it's having a brother and sister that is my opinion. But I just want to clarify that, the siblings that are in there now, no matter how long it takes the other sibling to get there, as long as that child is in the school, they can go. So we could be talking, if someone's a first grader now, we're talking 5 more years or 4 more years of the sibling preference for that family, correct?
Yes.
Just clarify.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions? Holly?
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of talking on what Ralph said, and it's more of a statement that I think originally, for the new board members, it became an issue of, there's a significant number of children that, the families are very lucky to have gotten picked in the lotto, and the families, everybody in that family gets to be part of the school. And are you taking the place of another student or another family in Danbury being able to experience that? And I think that one of the things, and Sal made a very good point, and it's one of, from my perspective, is that if something's working, you don't fix it, or you don't break the chain to make it different. From our perspective, maybe back in September, it seemed that there was legitimate interest to make the change. I don't sit here and think that a 4%, if that's the real number, looking at statistics, right? I mean, a 4% difference to allow opportunities to other children is not a legitimate interest to change policy for a program that's working as well. So I get both sides of it, and I get the convenience factor for parents, and I work in New Haven, I know what New Haven schools have been through, with their magnet schools as well, and it just seems more practical to allow these families to participate in one school instead of having them spread around town. I just came from King Street to here and live over near Mill Ridge. I know how hard it is to be in one place, 3 places at once. So that's my statement, and I appreciate you being here, by the way. Thank you, because I didn't get to meet you before. So thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak? Fred?
I just have some questions regarding some of the statistics that were presented to us. This microphone's not working.
No, here, let me turn.
No one wants to listen to me anyways.
Well, if you're talking statistics, I mean, it's just your fest right there.
The lawyer's microphone's broken.
That wasn't done intentionally.
Yes, it was. Oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you very much. Regarding statistics, and I'm just curious, the numbers that were presented to us for the 2015-2016 year, for Danbury, there are currently, a total of 231 students there from Danbury?
Danbury students.
Okay, and then 111 of them are siblings? Is that the breakdown?
Let me look at the same thing. Do you have it in front of you?
Yeah, I mean, I just had the sheet. I just wanted to make sure
Okay,
that-
yeah, it's about right.
So about half of that?
Elise has the sheet.
Yes,
It's rather last.
okay, and then same thing for the incoming kindergarten class, approximately 44% of it are siblings, so 26 siblings, 33 non-siblings. So these are the
Yeah,
numbers?
those are the numbers.
All right.
Right.
Has there ever been a year where all the kindergarten spots have been spoken for by siblings, or has it generally always been around 50%?
It just varies from year to year because it depends on, usually for most families, it's about a 2-year split. So some, as they start to move up the years, then you get lower percentages coming in. So it does fluctuate. It has been somewhere between 40 and 45%. When you think about 6 years, that's what I said before. Most families have more than one child in the course of 6 years.
And I wasn't here obviously for the initial discussion. Was it ever discussed maybe capping the number of siblings that came in, or was this always either sibling preference or no sibling preference?
I think they talked about different ways of doing the calculation, but shied away from because of the the possibility of errors and keeping account on doing all that. We talked about sunsetting it with, once it got to a certain percentage, then you don't have the sibling policy for that class, and then, okay, so then the next class has it. Could be a nightmare and create more issues. So it was one of either it's good for the families in Danbury. That's what I was trying to say before, and maybe I didn't say it well. Just the philosophical statement, opening up the gates. That was really the reason, and that was, they voted in favor of that. But we did talk about different ways of operationalizing it, because shied away from it because of the possibility of errors. That was talked about.
Well, I guess the last thing I just want to say is, obviously I'm all for keeping families together. I think it's very important. I think it's very important for the culture of the school. My concern is, and will always be a concern, that we only have so many spots in these magnet schools and in these different programs, that I would just like to leave it open to as many people to participate. It's not about breaking up families. I mean, fortunately, we do have community elementary schools and all that, but to eliminate half of the spots, or have half of the spots in an incoming class be already spoken for, is just a little much for me. So that's my concern. But that's.
Thank you. Thank you. Anybody else?
So, yeah, I just wanted to bring up, on the whole issue, I've been looking at this since before I was elected on the board. I was approached by many of the parents beforehand, and told them that I would be more than interested in looking at it, and after, they couldn't make a decision without hearing it. And all the people who came forward, and thank you, Doctor, for coming and speaking on it, I had many concerns, one of which representing Danbury, that whether it was sibling preference for everybody, whether it was sibling preference for nobody, I didn't feel that it was necessarily right for our constituents here to be separated, to feel left out, and do that for strictly a budgetary reason. Although, quite obviously, the dollars matter. We wouldn't want to see the school crippled or the whole budget crippled. But the persistence of the parents that came here and spoke on all sides were, I think the information was great. And that's really all I asked for when I came here. And I've, spoken to people on the board about, what they heard before and what, because I was not here in the initial vote. And I just wanted to say, and my feeling is that I like keeping the families together. I like the idea that Danbury is being treated the same way as all the other towns. And and since I've heard so much good positive information on all sides, but my preference is to lean towards the sibling preference myself, and I hope that it goes that way. Thank you.
There's a motion on the floor.
I know, but before we go, is there anybody else that would like to discuss, anything to say?
I'll be very brief. But by being a rep for the magnet schools, when it first broke ground, and went through almost 10 years of being a rep, going to all the meetings, and listening to the people from the state, and the board members that was on the committee for the magnet school, the clear understanding that I received was, let's keep the sibling preference in, okay? And we talked about that with all the superintendents from the surrounding areas that were buying into sending their children to the magnet school. So when and that's been happening for over 10 years under your leadership. And I have been to that school many times, okay? And I totally agree with my coworkers that it's the atmosphere that people receive from you and your staff. Yes, and it has to bring the family is there too, that's a part of it. But it's the leadership and the kindness that you get when you go there, again, from you and your staff. So sitting on that committee all those years, I mean about 8 to 10 years, okay, I think to me it's very important to leave things the way they are. And we had this discussion at NEC from the state. Let's keep the sibling preference in. And more or less thinking about the surrounding towns, families have to come from one area over to Danbury. And that was one of their main concerns. So, you know, I respect the sibling preference the way it is.
Is there anybody else that would like to say anything? I'm not saying anything because everybody in the world knows how I feel. So, I don't wait for meetings. Excuse me for a second. I'm getting reprimanded from this left side. That's the left side. But the motion is on the floor. And it's seconded by Holly. Did you read the motion?
I'm sorry, point of order. You first have, the motion is to add an item to the, maybe an action item to the agenda. So that needs to be first. That was the motion.
I made,
Then-
and I seconded.
And it was second. Now you gotta vote on
All
that.
in favor?
Aye.
Thank God.
So now we have the item, now it's an action item, which is,
Action item. Here it is.
Sure, we have. Motion that the Board of Education reinstitute the sibling preference for Danbury residents, beginning with the application and lottery process in January 2017.
Second.
Seconded by Pat. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
One. Abstentions?
I'm gonna abstain.
You're going to abstain. Okay, so I have one abstention, one no, and how many does that make? 6, 7, 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 yeses. It passes. It's reinstated.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you for all the time and the consideration that you put in this. It's been a very long process, and I know that you all really looked into it and really kind of went in and thought about what was the right thing to do. And so I really just want to let you know that we appreciate that.
And thank you, parents. Thank you, everybody out there. And thanks, Ted, for being quiet the last couple. All right, moving forward. Where am I? Oh, the chairperson's report, yes, okay. I have important business, could we just concentrate here for 1 more second? Okay. Just be still, just be still and listen, please, thank you very much. I'm speaking into the microphone, so it's important. On May 24th at 6 o'clock, I need one more person to pony up, sit in on the teachers' negotiation. I have Richie Hall, for one. Okay, I need one more. On May 24th, for the whole vote, it will explain that in 1 second. The first meeting is at 6 o'clock and 5:24, is that correct? Okay. Before I get a volunteer, could you explain the rest of what the duties are? Thank you very much.
Sure. So, hopefully 2 board members participate as part of the negotiating team for the teacher's contract. We would anticipate several sessions. By statute, they have to be done by the end of the summer, because there's no completion deadline. So it will be done, not necessarily at night, once the summer comes along, the teacher will be flexible as to timing, but I would plan on a few sessions. Usually, if we end up in mediation, those are the ones where you bring your families and stay on it, which is super fun. But it's, it's a few sessions.
Don't even listen to us and her all nice words, don't
Any of this way.
All right, anybody? All right, thank God. Thank you, God, for Mr. Farad. There you go. Okay, write it down. Frank Farad, just say this.
I thought about it for a second. I did think about it.
It was a fleeting second. Right, did you get that?
Yes.
Yes, it's Mr. Farad. I'm going to put it in the minutes, so it's for history. Thank you very much, Fred. Now, that was the good news. That was only the good news. We have how many other groups?
Well, we have custodians, which are actually kicking off tomorrow, and I have one person already. And I have paraprofessionals, which we have not scheduled yet. And we have administrators, which is like the teachers one, so I would like to 2 for administrators. And I know that you originally in your first volunteers for panels.
I did?
Somebody on the administrators.
I volunteered?
No, you
Oh,
have on this.
I was supposed to be on the.
Yeah, that was Fred,
What?
yeah. Okay, so you pre-committed to that one. Good job. Okay.
You wanted to consider.
Sorry?
And you would like to do concerns, but we need to do them during the day.
Yeah, that's my
No,
only
no, that
comment,
was the
just
same
can't get
thing.
there before 4
That was
o'clock.
my same conflict, was that they kind of, on certain days. So when we originally spoke, we talked Mondays, and that was going to be a problem, but they came out, it was Thursday,
So
Friday.
the one tomorrow is where we'll pick days, it wasn't everybody's schedule.
So you're saying if you work to Mondays?
If you want to do a Monday, Tuesdays, I can move around.
We can do that.
What about?
So for custodian.
If I mean, my problem, I have a very difficult time getting out
So it's
of work.
during the day.
Yeah, if it's 4 o'clock in the afternoon or later, I can do it
So that
any
all the
day.
teachers session.
I just have conflicts inside.
So I have one, which, if I could have one for the paraprofessionals and tutors, that would be essential.
And those are like in the day, in the morning?
And whenever, on whatever day you choose. Yeah. Otherwise, okay.
Because I can see those evenings.
Sure,
And
that's
Friday-
okay.
and when Fridays, I can do
Or
Fridays.
Fridays you can do. I hear you volunteering.
No, okay, but then, I've successfully been on board of education for 15 years and never sat on a negotiation table. Sorry, I don't do everything else, I wash floors, I clean toilets, I don't do that. It's a problem, it's a union thing, okay? My family started union, it's hard for me to sit on the other side. Okay, the other thing with that is, but if you're dead flat out and nobody in the world can do it, my operation is on the 19th of May.
So the 20th, you're fine.
Yeah.
Session
The
of the
hospital
rehab.
has a nice solarium room.
And they say I'm in rehab for 3 weeks, but if you can use me after that, go ahead.
Could I volunteer? I have to listen to the dates.
I don't have dates yet for that.
Okay, so
So I'm very
give the dates,
flexible.
and if something during the day, or
Okay.
all night, I can be in class. I just want to go to the study.
Just to remind the board, there's going to be a workshop with the entire board.
I'm
Right,
the
with, pardon?
Mr.
Yes, I mean, so,
Over
you
the.
know, even though.
It's
we'll be
not on
talking,
here, so it's still for May 4th.
It is still for, that's correct. It's the
But
morning
that's
we're
what's
meeting
wrong,
on.
right?
That's correct. It's-
It's here.
And what
No,
time?
it's not.
Not on the-
It's not on there.
It's at 7 o'clock in my book.
I need to check the time. We'll have to confirm that. Because we were going to have 2 functions, if you recall. One, an overview of the expulsion process was number 1, Kelly, right? And then second, the mainstay would be to discuss the contract.
6 o'clock now.
So it's 6 o'clock. So Tom, we can provide some nourishments at 6. He'll do the first half hour, 45 minutes, and then you'll go into the teacher negotiation stuff. And he'll go over the items from the last negotiation and things that have been a problem during this contractual time for us to deal with.
Okay, what else? All right, what else do I have to say? That was it. The negotiations are a big deal.
Even though they're not here, the two Richards rates have a finance meeting, probably mid-May is our guess. I don't know yet. We're trying to pick dates. There's not a lot on the calendar that's open coming up.
I put it on the 19th, and I'm an operator on that.
And the next board meeting, I believe there's superintendent's evaluation before that. So-
They've already taken care of
Yeah,
that.
so there'll be some, we got it at some point, but don't get it yet.
Okay, you'll get it, I'll get these all typed up and get them out to you.
We need a policy meeting.
Yes.
I need a policy meeting.
Okay.
That's, we said we wanted it early in the morning.
Well, if we could do it at 8 o'clock, that helps, and then people go to work.
Okay.
Ralph,
Make it a Friday then.
which day can we do a policy meeting?
You can do Monday, right? You can do Mondays?
Yeah.
So 8 o'clock on Monday.
I could do next Monday, maybe, if that's too soon.
Is that an 8th? The
No, that's
8th?
good.
I mean,
No,
the
the
9th?
second, May
The 9th? Or May 2nd?
May 2nd.
Oh, I know.
On May 2nd? You can
Come
go
and
right
have coffee
after
for
the
us,
policy.
only a half hour, 45 minutes.
Yeah, they said.
Yeah.
You can go right after
Kathy,
the
the
policy.
nurse at high school has developed a policy, it's all been written, and for us to look at, along with the regs.
Won't take long.
Otherwise, it's 6.
The 8th works, because we gotta get on the board.
Need a second.
On that Monday.
Second. It's
Talking
like
about the second.
5 days.
He's like Monday.
So this coming Monday at 8 o'clock, we'll have a policy on the break. Upcoming Monday.
Okay. Should I call Debbie in the morning?
Who else?
Okay,
And do you have, she'll have.
Yes.
Yes. Anybody else have any meetings they need to schedule or anything they need to discuss that's happening in their schools? If we could all pay attention while we're still in session, thank you.
If we're going to work through communications or whatever, comments. Okay, number one, Kim, I wasn't sure when you were saying it, that if there are availability, if you can use me after 4 o'clock, I would be, so if you talk to them and they can arrange meetings, I would be happy to help out on one of those. The other thing that I wanted to bring up, I discussed it earlier, I brought it up at, before the meeting, there was a concern from a parent that I called from regarding people for the primary, the doors being open, and people coming in while school is in session. So, they asked me if I'd bring it up, I'm bringing it up. They were just,
We had 6 of the schools were open for voting out of 19 sites that we have. We have a regional calendar. This was not one of the days off. No one was off around us. And we've never closed on a primary. We've always had the security, which we did, but we did have some, when it happened, we asked the city to think about a different location, but because of the statute, they could not make a move to do that. So it was either we called school off, which was not a scheduled day off, so we had school. Most of the issues that we had was parking, conflict. We did have a few people roam throughout the school, that nothing happened, it went well, but I will bring it up to the superintendents, and they do the calendar, which is in 4 years, if they want to do something with the day.
I think even if it was, to be honest, what I said to them was that I would bring up the fact that as long as it was, like, I go to Pembroke, and basically if there was somebody, you walk in the side door and go into the gym, as long as people couldn't wander the school, I think that people would feel secure.
Well, no, the parents, I talked to probably 6 or 7 parents who were emphatic that you couldn't create enough of a barrier for them.
Okay.
In this day and age.
I didn't get that call, but.
Yeah, I got none. And some kept their kids home, but overall, it went seamless. I've had faculty, because I put something out who voted, and it was exactly that way. It was no problem at the high school, no problem at the middle school. It was 2 of the elementaries, particularly because they have the way the schools are structured. We had an issue. I think if we have to do it again, I might even hire police for those 2 campuses for that day. Put them in that center to help we had the advocates there.
Right.
But so noted.
Okay, and then the one other thing that I had was I received some thank you notes for the reading day from Mr. Young's class, and they were wonderful from the kids. They were great, and it was a great day, and they asked me to come back again, so I can see if I can squeeze another day in. But it was great fun, and it was great day together. So
What is it all about?
it certainly is. And you said that, and I mean, it was a great day, and I enjoyed it very much.
Everything you respect, yes, guys.
I have to be one thing, but since we have not a lot of staff, especially our minority staff that are leaving the district, return or whatever, do we have a plan in place to recruit minorities?
I'm glad you asked that question. We did. Actually, I have been working on that for the better part of this year. One of the things that I talked about periodically here is that Dr. Sal and I have been participating in this human capital cohort that's been run by the State Department of Education. And our project that we've been working on is looking at minority hiring initiatives. And I've been addressing in particular 2 things. One is that in recent past, our minority hiring numbers have actually been quite good. We're running ahead of the numbers that we see in the state. But we have a lot of ground to make up because our overall population of 800 plus teachers does not generally reflect the demographics of our student population. That's just a fact that we're trying to play some real catch up, as they are across the country, and there's a lot of people writing about alternatives. So the Human Capital Cohort Project on minority hiring initiatives has been particularly timely for us because we're making good ground, but we're trying to sort of make even better ground. A couple of things that we've done. Dr. Sal and I went to the Historical Black Colleges reading session. Basically, it was a program that was run by the State Department of Education where all of the Historical Black Colleges were present and represented. We connected with those folks on crafting sort of a longer range plan of creating a pipeline with them. The second piece is I've been working with the State Department of Education. There's a consultant out there who's looking to do, as part of a minority hiring initiative, a program where we would send 8 of our teachers, 8 of our folks, to these sort of group sessions where they talk about cultural competency and how to make the environment more welcoming to minority candidates and minority hires. So while we don't necessarily have the funds in the Alliance grant to do that, I've been talking with the NEA, and they are interested in sponsoring some of the cost of that so that we can do that in the coming year. The third thing that we've done is we've reached out to our local area RESC, and they have been doing some work in the cultural competency area. The theory being that when you can't find large numbers of minority candidates to fill some of these slots, what are we doing to improve the climate in order to attract those people by educating some of our teachers in that area? And making them more aware. And so the RESC is going to come in on May 17th and do a small group workshop with some of our paraprofessionals. And we're also going to have them do a workshop with our administrators when we do that retreat with them in late June. Talking about what you're looking for as you're going to do observations in the classroom. What kinds of things are you looking for to sort of look at that question of do we have an environment that's welcoming to these sort of candidates? And so we're doing a lot of things on a lot of different fronts. We're not going to do a whole lot of hiring this year, I can tell you that. And so, what little hiring we are doing tends to be in shortage areas, particularly in the bilingual and ESL area that naturally attracts a lot of minority candidates. So I'm looking at the numbers. I'm supposed to do a presentation to the Human Capital Cohort on Tuesday, which I haven't written yet, but that's one of the goals for next week is to present where we are with the project. The other thing that Dr. Sal's been doing in the last couple of days is meeting with Rob Pody to talk about reinvigorating a program that we had with WestCon. It was a pipeline for students that showed an aptitude or interest in going into teaching who were minority candidates. And that pipeline with WestCon was designed to give them sort of intern opportunities and real life experiences that would encourage them to go into the profession of teaching. We lost some grant funding for that in year 2. In year 1, it was a highly praised program by the State Department of Education, and particularly at the Alliance District convenings, we were held up as a district that's really making significant strides toward an alternative route to bringing in more minority teachers, which is grow your own, essentially. We've found a way through Rob Cody's organization to fund some more of those slots for this coming up year. So we're working on that actually at the moment to try to get those slots going as well.
At least, and I guess my concern was, at least the door, something is being done. And it brought me back to, I was reading Hollis Whitman obituary, who went down 20 some odd years ago and recruited most of the minority teachers that we have in our school system and brought them to Danbury. And now Hollis was 91 and he was a well-liked man. And I just hope the doors are open, that we can have an environment that no matter who the person is, what they look like, where they come from, will feel comfortable in our environment.
I'll just end with this. What we walked away from that conference was that the tendency for students and who graduate in colleges, they'll remain within 90 miles of a university that they've graduated from. So we've tried to focus our interest to Delaware and local schools, so that if in fact we recruit individuals, they will stay with us and come with us. We thought about taking trips to the south. We went as far south as San Juan. When you remember, we sent a group down there. People are not going to leave, but they were very mindful of telling us to focus our time and effort with universities that within 90 to 100 miles of them. The tendency is that we would probably then attract and maintain and recruit all that. That's what we're trying to do.
It's a very, very high priority at the State Department of Education. Budget constraints notwithstanding, the minority hiring initiative is a huge project for them.
Well, thank you.
Certainly.
I just wanted to invite anyone, Michael and I are going to do some school visits on Monday. If anyone wants to come, just see us after. We'll give you the details on where we're going.
And I would like to thank him. Okay, we thank Joe all the time, I do. And I very seldom get to say thank you to Kim. It wasn't rehearsed, it was almost as if it was rehearsed. When I was asked to, you went. And those are the things that you do when you're just not medically based around. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now it's going to go over your head.
It's okay, as long as it doesn't go to a wall, we don't be concerned.
Just my point.
All right. Is there anybody else that has anything to say at 20 minutes to 9?
Can everybody just turn off their phones, just press that little button in the back of the red, you gotta keep your finger on it.
Have you turned mine off?
I'm not telling you, Jeff. It's for board members only.
It's a classified visit.
Nobody knows.
How you doing? Good, hurry up.
Oh, actually, you guys are going to face the high school project, right? I just want to say congratulations. Sorry.